What is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon. Round 3 of the Rugby Championship is just around the corner. Team announcements have started coming out, which means, of course, we're going to do another preview video, give a reaction to the teams that have been named already. Normally, I've been sort of wrapping these all up and doing all 4 teams in one video, but we've not got Australia and Argentina at the time of filming, and I'm also not around for a little bit after this. So, unfortunately, we're going to do just the one video, potentially this weekend, but South Africa, New Zealand... still a big video to do, still a big game on this week, so I'm really looking forward to diving in and giving some thoughts on the teams, who some good picks, some bad picks, some changes I might have made along the way, and go over some expectations of what I think could come from this game. Drop down in the comment sections what you guys think of the teams that have come out, whether you're a New Zealand supporter, South Africa supporter, or a neutral. Always fun to get your guys' opinion down in the comment section on the teams as well. And we'll jump straight into this one because so much to go over. So, South Africa and New Zealand, both teams coming off the back of a win last week. New Zealand much improved in their game 2 versus game 1, going up against Argentina. South Africa 2 wins from 2 against Australia, and last week maybe with a B team, you could argue B team. I did see comments last week from a few people saying like, oh, they actually think they'd underestimated Australia a little bit, going for some of the top end players maybe not playing in that game, as you know, or at least starting in the starting 15. Thought maybe they'd underestimated them, but still doing well with a couple of those key players, you know, having that rest week, getting ready for the big game. So I'm expecting big things from this one. We'll start out with the home team for this week. South Africa coming in with a swathe of changes and a graphic that's going to be slightly wrong. We'll get on to the substitutes in a bit because we have got one change coming in there since this graphic came out on Tuesday. Good game against Australia. Still a few things not quite working for them, but like I said, missing a few of those top end players that if you were picking a South Africa team, you'd probably put in straight away. They had a few players missing out, or just having extra rest weeks, getting themselves prepared for this New Zealand game. But they know this is probably the big one, right? When you go down to the Rugby Championship, I always typically think it's going to be between South Africa and New Zealand who go away with the win of the championship as a whole. So they knew they were coming back for the big week this week. So starting out of this for a row, Oxenche, Bongi and Benambi comes back in, and Frans Malherbe now. Grobelaar was the hooker last week. Not the greatest game for me. I was expecting a lot more, real injection of some new energy going in there, but a couple of penalties going his way as well. Malcolm Marks had a much better game when he came on from the bench. Bongi coming back in after his injury in round 1. Nice to see that he's fit for this game, and Frans Malherbe alongside him. That's a big old front row scrummaging, going to be very important in this game. The scrummaging has been working really well for South Africa. It's been the bench for some reason that's been coming on that second half. There's been little hiccups that have gone wrong with the scrums. Losing their own scrum on their own put-in is one that's been strange so far for me, because South Africa is such a massive scrummaging team. New Zealand have had a lot of practice against big scrummaging teams of Argentina as well, so they'll be up for a good scrummaging game as well. The lock department, big switch up here. So at the start of the week, Ebenezer was ruled out with an injury. Pieter-Steph du Toit is moving into that second row. He's moving into the number 4 shirt. Since then, Ebenezer has now been cleared of his injury. He is okay to play for this game. He's not starting. He is going to be in number 19. Marco van Staden not playing this week, and Ebenezer is coming in instead, but going to be starting on the bench. So Pieter-Steph du Toit is still going to be starting in that second row, which apparently he's done before. My level of South African knowledge compared to some of the Northern Hemisphere teams not always going to be there. I don't remember a game I've ever seen him play second row, but I have seen a lot of people say he's had that experience before. And what does it open up for you by being able to move him into that lock department is you get another guy in the back row, so you just get even bigger ball carriers in the team as well. So Sia Khaleesi, Ben Jason Dixon and Jasper Wiese coming in to the team to finish out that back row. So a lot of heavy ball carriers. The line-out department's probably going to be the only area that I think maybe New Zealand might be, licking their lips out a bit there. No Ebenezer starting. Pieter-Steph du Toit going in there, always up for, getting involved with the line-out and stuff. But, rather than having a dedicated lock, Pieter-Steph du Toit moving up. Ben Jason Dixon was everywhere in the game that I got to see him, and he was very, very busy. Jasper Wiese coming in at number 8 over Quagga Smith, who actually has been maybe a bit quieter for me over the course of this Rugby Championship that I'm used to seeing him. Bit of a shake-up in that back row, but I'm looking forward to see how that front 8-pack gets on. Halfback partnership, Kobus Reinach going in alongside of Sasha Feinberg and Gomazulu. No, I had to go back last week because it's been 2 weeks since the last game, and I was thinking, oh man, what quite happened last week? And something that I had put out of my head, Morne Vanderberg. Ooh, There was not a good game for that lad. There's very few players I feel like I get to say that about. I was begging Erasmus to take him off at half-time. I thought he was crashing and burning, in all honesty. I had a look at some of the Twitter notifications coming up at halftime, so a lot of people in high agreement. So many unnecessary penalties given away, box kicks not going well. Just, oh man. Cobus Reinach back in, hopefully going to be a much more cemented scrum half. So nice to see him taking that number 9 shirt. And Sasha Feinberg and Gomazulu. Stock has been put in this lad. He's the 10 going forwards. I think Marnie Libok is just going to watch from afar, really. He came on last week, and again, there was a great opportunity for a crossfield kick try going out to Cheslin Kolb, and he just didn't bite in. He just didn't go for the kick and ran it into the defence a few times. I think Sasha Feinberg and Gomazuli is the way forwards for South Africa, so glad to see him still in. Centre partnership, Damien Dialende going in alongside Jesse Creel. I think, is this actually the first time we've seen this in the Rugby Championship? I can't remember what round 1 was, but Lukania Am was in last week. Jesse Creel going back in alongside Damien Dialende. These boys have played endlessly together now. They are experienced working together as a centre partnership, so I think that'll still be working well for them. And then that back three, Kurtley Arendse goes in alongside Cheslin Colby. And Afaleli Fassi, who should just be called Fasty, because, man, that bang, he was away. He outran Mapimpi. I didn't actually realise how fast Afaleli Fassi was until we had that little grubber kick through by Mapimpi, and he just went. A couple of people did say last week in the comment sections, like, Fassi shouldn't even be near the team. Nowhere near going to be the starting fullback. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting take for some people. I don't think he had a good game. I think he did okay. He got over for a great try. And that counter-attack ability for just pure speed, that's a really dangerous back three. Mapimpi not getting in this week, again, a bit quiet for me. I had him as my captain in the fantasy last week. I was paying close attention to Mapimpi. Not really getting a lot of momentum, ball not coming out to his wing an awful lot. But I don't think that'll be a terrible back three for them. In terms of your replacements, Malcolm Marks, Steenekamp and Vincent Koch will be filling out that front row. Malcolm Marks going to go for 2 tries last week. That Australian defensive maul just struggling to cope with the power that the South Africans brought. Marco van Stallen, who's now, of course, exchanged into Eben Etzebeth, will be going on alongside of Elroy Lowe and Quagga Smith as well. So going for the 6-2, probably not a bad move. It's going to be a physical game. New Zealand might actually look to spread this one wider than South Africa. I wouldn't be surprised if South Africa try and keep this one really locked in with the forwards and don't let some of the players like Will Jordan and that get away down the wings. You want to really keep them locked in the midfield. And then your replacement backs, Grant Williams and Andre Pollard to seal you out. Again, I think that's another good move. You know, no Marnie Libok. You haven't got necessarily that extra little youngster playmaker style coming on, but I think Andre Pollard, just for security, kicking towards posts, late game. We could be looking at a 1-point game. This is a World Cup final rematch, and the 1-point wins we saw across the World Cup, right? Being able to have your reliable kicker, if Sasha Feinberg and Gomazulu just begins to start missing those kicks throughout this game, it's time to start getting Pollard on and just keep those threes or whatever ticking over just to make sure New Zealand don't get away from you on the scoreboard. But a really solid looking team from South Africa, but a lot of changes, and sometimes those extra changes coming in can come back to bite you just from a team cohesion standpoint. But a team that isn't changed that much, New Zealand. Now, New Zealand last week had a much better performance against Argentina, playing at home in the fortress location that they just don't tend to lose at. But they had a much better turnaround. I did see the interview after the game with Adi Sarve, and I really liked how he was quite mellow about it. He wasn't jumping for joy. They got this big win over Argentina. It was really like, this is where we want to be as a standard, and it shouldn't take a loss for us to be at this standard. And I thought that was really nice leadership to be like, this is just the standard New Zealand want to stay at. Now, not a lot of changes coming in for them this week. And I think probably rightly so. A lot of the changes that came in from round 1 to round 2 all seem much more positive for me. So keeping it along the same lines, I think is a good move. But we will get into it, because I've got maybe a couple of tweaks I might throw out there myself for this one. So starting out of that front row, Tamaiti Williams, Cody Taylor and Tyrell Lomax. Tamaiti Williams again, I think he's so good for such a young lad. He was everywhere in that game against Argentina. He did have a couple of penalties go against him, which may be a little bit harsh at times, but I thought he's busy. He's looking for work, which is something you'd like to see from props who sometimes can stay back a little bit and not necessarily get completely involved in the action. I think he's a really nice player coming up for New Zealand at the minute. In the lock department, the return of Scott Barrett coming in that number 4 shirt and the captaincy. We'll probably talk about the captaincy actually, because there's 1 captain and 3 vice captains. There's got to be enough captains at some point. Eventually, you don't need any more captains, but they've gone for 3 vice captains this week, So I don't really know what that is. Maybe they're looking at certain areas are captained by their own individual player. I'm not really sure what New Zealand are going for. I think maybe you can have too many eventually. But Tubovai going in alongside him at number 5. Sam Darry moved to bench. I don't think Sam Darry's played badly. I think the first game was he got his try and it was a bit neutral for me. Second game, I thought I actually saw an actual improvement in his game, and I actually thought it was having a good game. Is he going to be on the level of Scott Barrett? For me, maybe not. I think I would probably be putting Scott Barrett in ahead of him, but to just outright put Darry onto the bench, when I think he's been doing okay. I actually think I might have made a change further back. Now in the back row, we've got Ethan Blackadder, Sam Cane going in at 7, and Ardie Sarvea in at 8. Maybe they're thinking Sam Cane will want a bit of redemption from the World Cup final that we had where he got his red card. Maybe they're thinking he's going to bring real aggression. Not too much aggression. Just get another red card, so don't do that. But they've gone for a slightly different back row. Dalton Papali'i just not in the game, which I also thought was interesting because Dalton Papali'i, for me, in this type of game, your jackal work, and just from a pace standpoint of a forward, if you can get a little pop pass and sort of break through the line, I thought Dalton Papali'i might actually be quite a good player for this week. I don't believe there's an injury. I tried reading up. I didn't see anything that outright said he was out of this game, just not in this one. Now, for me, looking at that South African line-out situation with Etzebeth on the bench, and they've had to move Peter Steph Toy into that second row, I actually think I might be looking to punish the line-out a bit more if I was New Zealand here. I might have even looked at moving Scott Barrett back to 6, kept Sam Darry and Tubovai on at 4 and 5, and had a really big threatening lineup because South Africa have been doing well at the lineouts, but they have lost lineouts. So I think loading up that lineout and maybe going for 3 lads who are more dedicated towards a lock position, I would say, even though Scott Barrett can move back to the back row, I think you would put far more pressure on the South African lineout, and you could maybe really punish that first half lineout. And as soon as you start doing that, maybe South Africa begin to think twice about, do we go for the lineout? Maybe instead we should start looking at the scrum. Maybe we should start trying to look for actually kicking towards post, even if we think we could get into the corner because the lineout's not working for us. I think it could be an area they could have looked to punish a bit more. We'll see how it works out. They've always got that option for the second half to punish Marks when he comes on later on, and maybe slide into that later on in the game by making some changes there. Halfback partnership, TJ Perenara and Damien McKenzie, who I thought Damien McKenzie had a much better game last week, kicking towards posts, looked really solid. He was interlinking with other players really well. He got over for his try from the chip over from Geordie Barrett. Much, much better what you want to be seeing from Damien McKenzie. I was talking last week about maybe he should be looking to go back to fullback. Bowden could maybe going in at 10. But, if he can keep playing to that standard that he did last week, I would, fair enough. Let's see how he gets on in this game against South Africa, because I think that was a much better game for McKenzie. Centre partnership remaining the same, Geordie Barrett and Rico Ioane. I think this has worked better for them. Geordie Barrett, again, another one who I thought had a little step up last week. It just seemed to be all over the park again. Little chip kicks, making a nuisance of himself. And then that back 3, Caleb Clark, Will Jordan, and Bowden Barrett, who were just all threatening. I think all 3 of them got tries, right, last week? I think all 3 of them did. Will Jordan getting over for 2 as well. So dangerous down that wing. And this is what I think. I really think New Zealand could be looking at playing a much more expansive game. I don't think they want to get tangled in the forwards. They're playing South Africa at home. South Africa have got a big forward pack. I think you want to be looking wide. I think you want to be looking for Will Jordan. I think you want to be looking at Bowden Barrett. And I think they're going to need to maybe make a bit of a mental shift to do that, because Argentina defend quite widely, or quite large spaces between individual players. And there's a few times last week where New Zealand are charging at the line and doing very late minute pop passes, and someone is actually cutting against the grain and cutting in, and they're breaking through the line. And it worked against Argentina. South Africa tend to defend a bit more narrowly. They really try and hold around the ruck area far more securely, and I don't know if that tactic is going to work against South Africa. I think getting out wider quicker is going to be much more vital for them, and I'm kind of glad for what they've still kept with, because a couple of people said they didn't want Geordie Barrett, or Geordie Barrett's underperforming. I think he's still been doing well, but what I like is the Damien McKenzie, Geordie Barrett and Bowden Barrett angle is you've suddenly got 3 people who are very eligible for doing kicks. And I think a way they could look to punish this is going to be going for those crossfield kicks. Cheslin Colby and Arendse are very good in the air, but I'm thinking more about the height of someone like Will Jordan compared to Arendse. He's certainly going to be able to get up in the air for crossfield kicks a little bit more. Caleb Clark, not someone I think of as being very positive in the air, so they might try and ship it out wide quickly to Caleb Clark on his wing for the power game against Cheslin Colby. But for Will Jordan's wing, it might be something to start looking at for those little chip kicks over the top, or going for those crossfield kicks. Try and punish South Africa for defending narrowly and actually make room down the outside. And then their little impact bench that so far hasn't made the most impact for me. They call it impact. If you call the impact team, you got to have impact, right? There's been a couple of games now where I think like they've been okay. They've come out and sort of sealed out the finish, but it hasn't been anything impactful. I want to see individual players going on. Someone that did make an impact against England, if you remember in the zone, was Bowden Barrett. Came on from the bench, changed the game entirely. That's what you want to see from your impact bench. So hopefully we get to see that this week as well. So Armour going in alongside Tuanga Fassi and Fletcher Newell going on in that second half. Taking a quick look back at the South Africa one quickly. I think I'm still preferring the South African bench forwards coming in. Armour is still a solid carry there. I think I might be slightly leaning towards the South African forward pack coming on there in that front row for the second half. We'll see how that gets on. Sam Darry and Finau will be finishing out your forwards as well. Guldes Ratimer, Anton Linnett-Brown and Mark Talea sealing out the backs for this one. Again, they've gone for the 5-3. South Africa gone for the 6-2. All of this says to me, South Africa want to keep it locked to the forwards. If you're New Zealand, go for the backs. Keep it wide, keep it expansive, and try and put them under pressure. If you're South Africa, I think you want to really try and lock down that set piece. The line-out needs to be on point. I think, you know, there's been things that have gone wrong in the sort of set piece over the course of the last two games. Even though they look dominant for large portions of it, certain things go wrong and kind of mess it up for them a little bit. You just want to secure that scrummaging area. You want to secure that line-out area, and then you just begin to punish the forwards. You've got the 6-2 advantage, but you've got to be able to tire out the New Zealand forwards. If you're going for those line-outs, you keep it in a maul. You tie up as many forwards as possible. If you get a penalty, maybe start looking at scrums just to tie up 8 of the New Zealand forwards, and actually, you know, that way they're stuck in the scrum. They're going to be expending more energy. You could spread out wide. I wouldn't be surprised if we see the sort of bomb squad run on where they do all sort of 5 forwards at one time in this game just to try and punish those New Zealand forwards a little bit more. I haven't seen the weather for this game. Weather has been important. Last week it was raining for both of these teams. And you have to change your game tax a little bit. If it's raining, I think it actually might really help the South African team out a bit. If it's looking sunny, if it's looking bright, then you might actually end up being a much more expansive game, and New Zealand might look more positive. In terms of a score prediction, what do we think? What do we think for this one? This is the redo of the Rugby World Cup, and that was narrow, right? So I also think this one will be narrow. South Africa got the home advantage this week. I think over the course of the last 2 games, I think on average South Africa played better. I think New Zealand took a better step up against Game 2 versus Argentina. I think I'm still leaning towards South Africa for this one for me, but I don't think I'm going to go a lot. I think this could be 1 penalty. I think it could be that sort of range. I'm going to say South Africa by 3. That's going to be my prediction, guys. Let me know down in the comment section your score predictions. Of course, make sure you're locking in your old fantasy teams and your predictions on the Super Brew as well, because that's always fun. We'll be going over those results on Monday. Let's look forward to another awesome weekend of the Rugby Championship. I've been really enjoying it. I've been getting up at like 6 a.m. to watch it over here in the UK, but luckily the games are on slightly more reasonable times for me. But I hope you've all enjoyed this one today, guys. I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.